Hey guys, my name is Mike Kane, and today I will be sharing with you my personal microculture. If you've ever been to an opera or to see the New York Philharmonic, you've been exposed to my microculture. You probably haven't noticed that before, but I'll get to explaining why you have. In fact, you play a pretty big role in my microculture. You listen to the sounds that we create that form a tune, and you get goosebumps at the swells of our creation. To us, music is everything. When we come together, that is our main focus. That's our value, that's our belief. We have the ability to move people and to express emotion. We also have the ability to portray any culture through our own. My microculture is orchestra. I'd argue that the dominant culture outside of my microculture would be music in general. This is a very broad culture, and it's composed of hundreds of other microcultures. For example, hip hop artists, rap artists, instrument makers, tuning specialists, music teachers, the list really goes on and on. But specifically, as I've mentioned before, I'm here to shed light on my microculture, orchestra. We are different from the rest of these other cultures and microcultures because we value different things, we believe different things, and we portray different things. Our core value is the music in which we play. That is what we are here for, and that is what keeps us going. Others value the instruments themselves, some value the tools they use to fix an instrument, and some value popularity or their specific music genre. It all depends on the microculture you belong to. Being that mine prioritizes the music in which we play, it is important that we understand where this music originates from. We are very diverse people, and we have and share histories of many other cultures that make up our own. My microculture entails an abundance of history that makes our abilities possible. We are very unique in the sense that before performing a piece, we learn the history and theories behind it, where it came from, who made the piece, and what emotions are supposed to be portrayed. This is very important to us, because any one of us can play a piece without knowing the history or theories behind it, but the effects would not be the same. If we have an understanding of how the piece is supposed to be played, it makes the effects much more intoxicating and anticipating not only for us, the orchestra, but for you as well, the audience. My microculture is composed of people who master the ability to not only play their selected instrument, but then to follow, accept, and to interpret music historically, culturally, and properly. We also have the ability to read and to analyze symbols on a page called notes, key signatures, tempo, key changes, repeats, rests, and hundreds of other music terminologies that are specific to my microculture. Others share and appreciate these symbols on the page, but sometimes they tend to avoid key symbols, like a diminuendo, for instance. That's a sudden decrease in loudness in the music. Usually people do this to appease or to adhere to the modernization of music in general. But to us, the orchestra, they are a priority, and we follow them strictly. Sometimes it is not uncommon for conductors to evolve certain parts of the music to make it sound allegedly better or more up to date. But to the people of my microculture, that would be messing around with the true portrayal and culture of the music. Hence, a difference in the way we view and use these symbols. So, the next thing I will be talking about is the behaviors and communication patterns where the orchestra microculture differentiates from the dominant culture. I could go on and on about little things as there are hundreds, but I will mainly focus on the communication patterns and behaviors that contribute to the orchestra as a whole. To further differentiate between my microculture behaviors and patterns of communication, I will be placing emphasis on the means in which we communicate with each other and how one might act if they were part of the orchestra. This microculture follows a specific etiquette. When we practice, it's important to always stay focused and to be on task at all times. From personal experience, distraction is not really tolerated. This allows us to absorb all the information of the piece or rehearsal with little interruption. We gain a lot from being attentive to detail. That is a big part of being in an orchestra or even being a musician in general, attentiveness. We also value preparation and practice. These behaviors are essential to my microculture and they contribute to the whole overall. Anyone can tell if you haven't practiced or if you're not prepared. Trust me, it's embarrassing and it's a negative situation that you don't want to be in. Preparation and practice allow the microculture to get through rehearsals swiftly and with little interruption. We are a microculture that does not like to waste time. We do not usually focus on one thing or another for more than a few minutes. It's proper etiquette to be prompt, ready, focused, and prepared. There are some personal behaviors that one must follow to be in this microculture. It is important that we remain very organized. Have your music in your instrument, bring a pencil, and mark in mistakes on your page. These are important personal behaviors because they contribute to the fluidity of orchestra's practice and performance. These little things are key. Talking about communication, it is always wise of us to speak and to act courteously and kindly to your fellow culture members and especially to the conductor. Usually in an orchestra, you share a music stand with another person to maximize space and efficiency. It's important to remember to share your music stand so that the other person can see and play properly. You should always make sure that your stand partner is comfortable and has enough leg and arm room to play their instrument to the best of their ability. And you should always feel free to be vocal about your comfortability. In my microculture, if you ask, behave, and communicate in courteous and kind ways, you will always get what you need. These behaviors and patterns of communication have been relevant in this microculture for years. It has always been the learned etiquette, and it has always been reliable. It allows for a comfortable and genial environment, a productive and effective environment, and overall, it contributes to the microculture as a whole. Without this, an orchestra would struggle. So, next, I will be talking about some interesting facts about my microculture. Orchestra has been around for centuries, so there is an abundance of history and interesting facts. Here are a few. Number 1. The orchestra is composed of many instruments. I fall in the trumpet or cornet family. Cornet is another term used to define the trumpet. That's where I sit because that is my selected instrument. Usually in an orchestra, there are around 105 to 110 individuals. There are violins, violas, cellos, double basses, flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, horns, trumpets, trombones, a tuba, lots of percussion instruments, a few harpists, and finally, maybe a keyboard musician. As you can tell, there are a lot of us, and there is a lot of demand for all of these instruments. The number in which an orchestra holds in participants can vary depending on the number of individuals who audition and are accepted at the beginning of the orchestra season, or simply because there is no need or there is a need. Numbers vary from about 40 to 200 people. It's amazing to think that 200 people can come together in harmony and perform a piece to the audience. Like I mentioned before, this takes some incredible skill. Number 2. Orchestras exist in all 50 states of the US. They also exist all around the world. Orchestras are actually more popular than you might think, but we are very private and low-key people right up until our performance day comes around. Number 3. The most popular orchestra piece ever played and still played to this day is Johann Strauss II's The Blue Danube Waltz. This is what it sounds like. It's a genius piece that is used quite frequently in today's world, whether for its intended purposes or not, something like a meme. Strauss is popular for his wide variety of composed waltzes. Their intended purpose was to be used as a formal dance, usually in triple time, which is the time signature or a beat, and in a closed dancing position, which is where two parties dance together facing each other with body contact. Number 4. Orchestras are different across all countries. Traditionally, as I've previously explained, in the US there are specific instruments to the orchestra. In other countries like Thailand, for example, there are instruments in the orchestra that are directly correlated with that country's culture, like gongs or the pai, which is a double-reeded oboe. You can see these instruments in the top right corner. Further, in Indonesia, there are bowed and pluck string instruments that are specific to their culture that is also used in the orchestra. You can see this in the top right corner with the black border. This is called a sansando. It sounds like a harp. Number 5. Theater was important in ancient Grecian times. This is where we first see the ideas of an orchestra start forming. Orchestra, allegedly translated from Greek, meant the front part of the stage was reserved for instruments and the chorus. In these times, music was essential and very important. There was no theatrical production without the music. Hence, this was the beginning of the orchestra. This microculture has certainly evolved to be more modernized and up to date regarding instruments and their efficiency. But the history of where the orchestra started and the history behind every piece or composer will always be part of the history we share amongst ourselves in my microculture. For my closing statement, I conclude that orchestra is indeed a microculture. We have separate values, beliefs, and motives that differ from other surrounding microcultures as well as the dominant culture. Surrounding microcultures are similar in the sense that we all work with and love music. But as you can see from my descriptions, analysis, and personal data, we have differences. The love of music, the communication patterns in which we exchange, the behaviors in which we portray, and the history we consume are all produced and followed in a special sort of way by my microculture. We all share the same language and symbol system that is different from other cultures in music. We share histories of music theory, composers, and pieces of music that others tend to avoid or undermine. Our appreciation of history is something that differentiates us most powerfully from other microcultures. The history we share has formed us, and it has given us the ability to portray it through our talents. I deeply appreciate this microculture as it has taught me a lot: organization, dedication, and knowledge most of all. We are a community of extremely talented individuals with goals in mind and lots of success, just like all other microcultures. Thank you for taking the time to listen and to appreciate my microculture.